Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Pakistan on behalf of the OIC.
Thank you, Mr. President. The OIC welcomes the distinguished Special Rapporteur and thanks her for presenting the mandate's latest report. We reaffirm our abiding support for the mandate. We have witnessed attempts to launch relentless defamatory attacks and smear campaigns against successive mandate holders, including Mr. John Dugard, Mr. Richard Falk, Mr. Richard Link, and now Mr. Michael Link, and now against Ms. Francesca Albanese. We take strong exception to the ongoing targeted disinformation being spread against Ms. Albanese by certain quarters and reject the baseless allegations against the mandate holder, who is being targeted for daring to discharge a vital mandate with courage and determination, as ever the UN human rights mechanisms and high officials. Such malicious and personally disparaging attacks must not be allowed to continue. Madam Special Rapporteur, we welcome your reports on the crime of genocide committed by Israel, the occupying power in the Gaza Strip. We call on all countries and international organizations to take measures including an immediate ban on the export or transfer of arms, ammunition, or dual-use materials to the occupying power, in addition to sanctions. Furthermore, we call on the international community to ban the products of the illegal Israeli settlements from entering their markets and to take measures against individuals and entities involved in or benefiting from the perpetuation of occupation and settlement regime. The two-state solution is the only viable solution to reach peace and stability in the region. Over the past 77 years, generations of diplomats have contributed to strengthening human rights.
I now call the distinguished representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mr. President. We reaffirm our full support for the mandate of a special rapporteur and express our solidarity in the face of all unjustified attacks and pressures. We commend the President's reports for exposing the political economy behind Israel's genocidal occupation. It shows how corporations, investors, and institutions are complicit in this crime through financial and technological support, including AI systems that enable genocide to be committed with zero accountability. In line with international law, we stress the urgent responsibility of states and corporate actors to conduct due diligence, and we call for immediate economic sanctions against Israeli regime to end corporate profiteering from genocide. Israeli regime suspended its full-scale genocidal campaign for only 2 weeks, exactly when it came under decisive strikes by the armed forces of Islamic Republic of Iran. This undeniable fact proves once more that this regime understands no language but the language of force, not the language of law, nor the voices of civilized nations. The Iranian nation and its glorious history have always defeated the forces of evil and aggressors throughout time. Once again, we have pushed back this inhuman force that came with all its might. We stand unshaken and never surrender. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'd like to remind delegations, when referring to the authorities of a state, you're requested to use the language and terminology adopted in United Nations practice. Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Indonesia.
Mr. President, Indonesia strongly condemns Israel's relentless massacre of the Palestinian people, systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure, and deliberate starvation in Gaza. The total siege of Gaza, obstruction of humanitarian assistance, and attacks on aid seekers extend far beyond tragedies. These crimes have too long persisted with impunity, enabled by the complicity of various actors, including corporate entities. We commend the Special Rapporteur's critical work in unveiling the corporate networks that perpetuate Israel's genocidal acts against Palestinians. The ICJ advisory opinion has made it clear corporate entities bear a prima facie duty to fully withdraw from any dealings that sustain Israel's illegal occupation in OPT. We urge all states to uphold their human rights obligation by enforcing accountability for corporations complicit in serious international law violation in OPT. The vast business structures entangled with this colonial enterprise must be dismantled. Madam Special Rapporteur, how can states strengthen the mandatory due diligence to compel corporations operating in their jurisdiction to disengage from crimes against the Palestinian people? Thank you.
Merci. Je donne la parole.
Thank you. I now call the distinguished representative of Pakistan.
Mr. President, Pakistan warmly welcomes the Special Rapporteur and affirms abiding support for and solidarity with the mandate holder and deplores the personal attacks and accusations against her. Pakistan reiterates its call on the international community for an immediate end to Israel's genocidal campaign and to ensure a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. The never-ending expansion of the Israeli ground operations in Gaza and escalating assault on Palestinians in the West Bank pose grave threats to lasting peace, which hinges upon the emergence of a Palestinian state on the pre-June 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Mr. President, we appreciate the Special Rapporteur for bringing into focus the system of incentives that enables the perpetuation of illegal occupation. We also appreciate her efforts to review the legal framework for responsibility of corporate entities in illegally occupied Palestine. The illegality of benefits derived from perpetuation of occupation is well established in international law. In a world where businesses appear so sensitive to concerns such as animal cruelty and environmental harm, where is their sense of responsibility towards the besieged Palestinian people? Echoing the OIC group, generations of diplomats have contributed to strengthened international human rights legal framework. We now confront a defining moment. Whether this work still has meaning and sincerity, let us not fail our future. I thank you.
Thank you. I now call the distinguished representative of Turkey.
Mr. President, we congratulate the Special Rapporteur and her team for this important and timely report. We reaffirm our enduring support for her mandate. We must confront a growing and sinister reality. The OPT has become a laboratory for surveillance technologies, autonomous weapon systems, and crowd control tactics. These systems are tested on a population living under siege and marketed as combat-proven to international clients. This is profiteering from war crimes. It implicates not only the occupying power, but also private corporations, arms manufacturers, tech firms, and logistic providers who knowingly enable these violations. The principle is clear. A genocide left unpunished is a genocide bound to be repeated. Turkey stands unwavering in its support for the Palestinian people and the enforcement of international law. We affirm the occupation must end, settlements must be dismantled, the blockade of Gaza must be lifted. All UN and ICJ decisions must be implemented in full. Those who commit or enable atrocity crimes, state or private actors, must face justice. Turkey will continue to use all its rights under international law to hold perpetrators accountable. We consider the Palestinian issue central to regional and global justice and peace. It is not a marginal conflict. It is a test case for the viability of international law. Let us conclude by reaffirming our case for a fair and lasting settlement, a two-state solution with the establishment of a sovereign, independent, contiguous state of Palestine based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. I thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bangladesh.
Mr. President, we thank the Special Rapporteur for her report. Bangladesh condemns in the strongest possible terms the unabated, brutal aggression, violence and atrocities of Israel, killing hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people in Gaza, most of whom are children. Accountability for these acts must be ensured. Bangladesh remains gravely concerned by the use of corporate and technological infrastructures that perpetuates occupation, apartheid, and, as the report asserts, an economy of genocide. We share the Special Rapporteur's deep concern regarding the documented complicity of various corporate actors who continue to profit from the occupation. The cycle of impunity, coupled with the indifferent attitude of the international community and profiteering by the accomplice corporations, has only encouraged the occupying forces to commit repeated grave violations of human rights and perpetuate the atrocities. We believe that ending the occupation is essential for the realization of peace, stability, and development in the region. The international community must take every possible measures to immediately end this illegal occupation and enforce lasting ceasefire in Gaza. Unrestricted and adequate humanitarian assistance in Gaza and OPT must be ensured also. Finally, we reaffirm our unwavering support to the Palestinian people's legitimate struggle for self-determination till the establishment of sovereign state of Palestine based on the two-state solution and pre-1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Thank you, Mr. President.
Of China.
Mr. President, China has noted the report of the Special Rapporteur and expresses concern over the violation of international human rights law and IHL and the possible international crimes related to attacks on education, facilities, and religious and cultural rights. sites. China is highly concerned over the human rights situation of the region, firmly supports the just cause of the Palestinian people to restore their legitimate national rights, condemn all actions that harm innocent civilians, and calls for immediate lasting ceasefire to effectively alleviate humanitarian disaster in Gaza. China welcomes the recent adoption of the resolution by the Emergency Special Session of UNGA calling for immediate, unconditional, permanent ceasefire by all parties to the conflict reflects the consensus of the overwhelming majority of the member states. China regrets that some countries have ignored the long-standing sufferings of the Palestinian people. All countries are duty-bound to abide by international human rights law and IHL's. International community should take all necessary action to stop all the illegal activities, hold those responsible accountable to work together to effectively promote and protect human rights. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to express our thanks and appreciation to Ms. Albanese for preparing this report in spite of difficulties and constant threats. Lastly, from the U.S. mission in New York, accusing her of anti-Semitism. The same happened with former SRs, the ICJ, the ICC, the UN, the EU, and several U.S. universities. In fact, anti-Semites are those who support the genocidal government. Mr. President, this report comes to complement the report of last year on genocide. The report provides a comprehensive analysis of how an economy of occupation became an economy of genocide, backed by a series of transnational corporations, from the industry of weapons to AI and digital surveillance. The report accurately describes this system as a colonial racial capitalism. The report also refers to the fact that impunity and lack of accountability is what allowed this regime to continue its brutality. The report does not only provide evidence, but calls on radically rethinking the relationship between international law, world economy, and criminal liability. It holds states accountable and legally responsible of non-compliance. In the past 20 months, over 200,000 Palestinians were killed or wounded. Some 1,000 families were totally exterminated. 1.9 billion people were forcibly displaced, in addition to destruction of infrastructure. In spite of the calls to allow humanitarian access through recognized UN mechanisms, especially UNRWA, the occupying force still refuses access and insists on using starvation as a weapon against civilians. This means we must take practical steps to allow for aid access, and not through the Israeli-US trap that is called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and that has killed 600 of those awaiting aid and wounded over 4,000 just last month. In the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, the occupying power continues a parallel campaign that is just as destructive. It aims at the very existence of Palestinians in all its forms. The cities and camps face daily incursions, constant attacks on the infrastructure, on civilian life. We also see an escalation of the crimes of settlers under the protection of the army. This includes arson, beating, collective expulsions, confiscation of land. Only yesterday, 140 homes were destroyed in Tulkarem by the occupation forces, in addition to what we see in Jerusalem and a threat to annex the West Bank only yesterday, in spite of the decisions of this council, the GA and the Security Council, in spite of the provisional measures called for by the ICJ, the occupying power continues its genocide. Therefore, the countries of the world are called upon to shoulder their legal, moral, and humanitarian responsibility. They must abide by Article 146 of the Fourth Geneva Convention to stop the transfer of weapons, not to cooperate with settlements, and it is time to take the necessary action.